Jerry, welcome back to another year. Good morning.
Shan Bobby, well, it is great to be on, and man, I'll tell you, it seems like the first year to me.
Yeah, you're always optimistic, and even with this, Jerry, you listen, you check in with the station here and there. You're fully aware of all the talk shows. Does this feel like the most pessimism or negativity with the Cowboys offseason personnel-wise that you can remember in a while?
Well, I think so, that I can remember, but I know, I really know I've had others that might have looked after we had some success and then lost some key guys. But that goes with the territory. There's a whole bunch of this thing. It just has to, you have to see what you got. And who could have, ever seen guys like Pollard when Pollard first came in, or just any of these younger players. And we've got a lot of younger players. And so I understand that we lost some names, Collins. We certainly lost Cooper. But by the same token, and I mean this, not overly positive, we can be better teams, better in those areas. Some of the things that we had to sacrifice in some of those areas will make up for here.
Yeah, someone told me at training camp that under Mike McCarthy, he wanted to put even more of an emphasis on drafting and developing guys. I just think as a fan, the unknown scares me a little bit. When you have experience, it feels like a little bit more of a safety net. But you guys are willing to go ahead with some of these inexperienced players to make you contend, right?
Well, let me be real candid here. We built our roster up, but you might even say at a crescendo level last year. And we had a pretty good hand last year. And, of course, unfortunately, we got Dak limited there fairly early. And then Zeke got a little limited. But we put a lot on the table last year, and there was no question relative to the investment in the roster that you were going to have to make some adjustments after last year in this year. We could see that coming. And so part of what you're seeing is the adjustment for having shoved it out there last year.
Jerry, how much different is Dak physically today than at this time last year, or how he finished off last season?
Well, he's in the best shape that I've ever seen him. And he's fit. Not that he hasn't been fit, but he's actually, I think, does have less weight. But he's just in better shape. I think he's 2 years away from his that serious injury that he had. He's, of course, a full season away from getting his arm and getting his calf in better shape. He's down the road in those areas that we dealt with last year. So going in here now, he's as good a shape as I've ever seen him, and both from the standpoint of his different ailment or different issues, as well as just his overall health.
Jerry Jones with us here on 105 through the Fan, brought to you by Ford, built for Texas, built for you. Jerry, is it looking like the rookie Tyler Smith is going to be replacing Tyron Smith at left tackle?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. We've got to get him out of here and get him practiced here over the next couple of weeks relative to any issue he had with a little high ankle. But we don't think that's serious enough to limit his preparation. Now, what is the case is he hasn't been there at left tackle, and he is a rookie. But he's a first-round pick, and he deserved to be a first-round pick in my mind. And so we knew we just didn't want it to come any earlier than it needed. But we knew we had to get ready to replace our left tackle, and he was the pick.
So, Jerry, correct this thinking out loud that I'm about to do here. It looked like Tyler was not about to win the starting job over McGovern at left guard, and now he's going to play left tackle. That sounds scary. Help me out with that fear in terms of backup left guard to starting left tackle.
Well, that's not only but really, only the man up above knows whether or not he was going to win that spot or not. And to give Connor his due, he was doing a good job of competing in there. But now, when you look at the physical attributes of the comparison, then you readily see how Tyler Smith's going to be difficult to keep from a starting role at any spot.
Jerry, you mentioned there a second ago that when you guys drafted Tyler Smith, it was, with in mind that, hey, this is going to be our future left tackle, that you were trying to get prepared, get ahead of the curve, and plan for the future. How far in advance do you guys tend to look at replacing great players? What's your general approach for that? Is that usually something when it's right on your doorstep, or do you try and get out in front of that for a couple of years?
Well, that really is an inexact happening, really, and because you hope that players come along that exceed their expectation. A fourth rounder, a fifth rounder that all of a sudden can play, and so that's hard to count on that. But you can overtly pick your first round picks and your second round picks, and you expect those guys to play. And I think that basically we thought that when we used that first pick on Tyler.
Jerry, does this...
And again, you see, I didn't answer your question. I would expect him to come in and play. I wouldn't expect a first-round pick to be basically not playing in his first year.
Jerry Jones right here on Shan and RJ 105 through the Fan. Jerry, do you think that this changes the offense dramatically? Does it make you have to get the ball out a lot faster? Do you lean on the running game more? Do you keep extra tight ends or Zeke over there to chip and block? Does this change a lot of Kellen's playbook?
Well, I think that you have to look at where you are on any given week, not just by the overall season. And, of course, you would look to, if you will, whatever you're dealing with in the first week to hopefully improving as time goes along. Then the other thing that I want to bring up right now is that we just assume that you look at the void, and that's fair as we open this season. But I expect to have Tyron back, and I expect to have him back right in the meat of things. And anytime you can look to and see that kind of improvement coming after Thanksgiving, then we all have just lived last year to know when you want your best firepower to be your healthiest is as you go into those playoffs. So I'm one, and I'm founded to think that Tyron will be back, and he'll be back for the meat of the season.
Jerry, you've talked a lot about Zeke. We go as Zeke goes. The run game in the offseason, we're trying to figure out what the identity will be. Some people are like, hey, is this defense now better than the offense? What's your early feel on what the identity of the 2022 Dallas Cowboys could be?
Well, with our plan and our personnel, then we hope to be able to run that football more than we ran it, let's say, in the last few years. And Zeke will be critical to that. But we'll also need to be able to run block. We should be able to run block. Run block is more of a given than being able to protect if you're dealing with inexperienced linemen. And so we should be able to run block. As to what we do offensively, we'll play that game by game as far as how quick we get the ball out or whether or not we're into play action. But still, we've got the guys, we have the players that can really play well in a play action kind of ball out quick offense for sure.
Jerry Jones here with his first show of the regular season, brought to you by Ford, built for Texas, built for you. Jerry, who have been some of the guys throughout training camp and these preseason games that you've really been impressed with? Maybe some sleepers out there that we should be paying some extra attention to.
Well, I'm going to go right to that center of that defensive line. Tristan Hill has really had a great camp and has come back with the kind of energy. He's always had the skills and the quick twitch that we wanted. And then Bohannon's a big nose tackle in there. And I would say that when you look at where we are inside, we're beefed up. And that's what we wanted, and that's what we've got. And we needed those guys that I just mentioned to have good camps, and they have had. I really like what Sam Williams has shown. And he's everything you want when it comes to getting after, and if you will, being a force running the ball down. I think he's got Lawrence-type tenacity, and he's certainly got the skill, the speed to run across that field and really cover a lot of ground. So those guys come to my mind. We've never been in better shape at safety. We've never had better players. All told, we've had a player, or players, don't take anything away from Darren Woodson or Roy Williams, but in general at the position, we've never been in better shape. And it's when you look at it, it's according to form. Hooker's supposed to have been good. We wanted to pick him. He got picked the sixth pick of the first round. We wanted him. And so these guys are playing to farm in many cases out there. So I like that. I like a couple of young corners have really stepped up and looked good. So I'm kind of really talking about the defense. Let's go over to offense. And I'll tell you right now, we've got a quarterback that will get the guy that's open. And we've got some young receivers that go where they're supposed to go. And if it's open for them, they'll see the ball. That's very important, to go where you're supposed to go. That means everything, because you're clearing out for some of the other guys if you are covered. We've got guys that are showing that kind of discipline, and that's what we wanted with our receiving core.
Jerry, we all freaked out when Washington got hurt, saying, go and get this guy. Why are the Cowboys shopping? Go out and spend. And then it sounded like we got an optimistic report from you about Michael Gallup. Where are you with Gallup, and how much of his return factored into not going out and getting another receiver besides Turpin?
If this were the Super Bowl, Gallup would be lining up and playing. If against Tampa were the Super Bowl, he would be lining up and playing. And so we're going to be cautious, or not cautious, but conservative with him. He won't be out there more than likely against Tampa, but if it were the Super Bowl, he'd be playing. He's that ready.
Jerry Jones right here on 105.3 The Fan. Kind of a general football question for you. It seems like these players, Jerry, love these scrimmages against the other teams, maybe more so than some of these preseason games. Are we kind of turning a corner in the NFL with preseasons to where you can get more work done going up against the Broncos or going up against the Chargers than playing some of these actual games? How do you view it?
Well, we're going to have more games, regular season games, and less preseason games. We are now compared to a few years back, and that's possible in the future. But more importantly, when you're working against another team, you have a control-type situation. A veteran player, for instance, can get 60 snaps in a practice like that. Whereas if you went to a preseason game, he might get 12 snaps, 13 snaps, because you don't keep the veteran player in there through the entire four quarters. And so, yes, there is more work, and the kind of work that you need for that veteran player. Obviously, we don't want to leave it out there with a veteran player, a starter type. You don't want to leave that out there in August. You want to save it for December.
Jerry, it's roster cut down day. Obviously, I'm sure you guys are having meetings this morning and everything else. What positions are you having the most difficulty, I guess, right now trying to trim down?
Well, again, I don't want to give anything away, but we've pretty much made our decisions. And we're going to have more defensive players than we do offensive players by the most we've ever had. And so that'll tell you there where we think the hard calls were. So we'll have probably 3, 4, 5 defensive players more than we normally would have had, or would have had if you made it even. So we're going a little heavier there on defense.
Jerry, how do you feel about the penalty topic coming off of last year? And I got to ask you, as a former football player, the age-old question: do you put it more on the players or the coaches when it comes to penalty problems?
Oh, I think it's the player, and the player has to have that kind of discipline. He has to think like that. You just have to be conscious of what a penalty does to your team. And once you get that in your head and really get it in your head, then it'll start resulting in fewer penalties. So now, who is it that puts it in their head? Who is it that's constantly reminding them? That's coaches. But you've got to have accountability from anybody, whether it's, in this case, which it is, a football player, but all of us. At the end of the day, you're the one that's jumping offside, or you're the one that doesn't have the discipline. And so you got to have that. Several things you can't do and play in the NFL, and one of them is be somebody that doesn't have enough discipline in their thinking or have enough understanding of what the game is about to not have penalties. You've got to be aware of that.
How was Jerry Jones penalized for holding or false starts at Arkansas?
You know, we practiced. We led the nation 2 years in a row on special teams. We would practice with broom handles behind our back and our arm and the elbows of our arm and the broom handles, and we would run down with broom handles so that we couldn't get our hands out so that you could hold. And so, and we hopped at a big hunk of it, and the first 25 minutes of our practices were special teams while we were fresh and could really concentrate mentally on it. And we led the nation 2 years in a row, and I thought our special teams, it was the difference in winning the national championship. So special teams is very impactful in the outcome of the game, but make no mistake about it. You got to get out there and have your mind in the game and mind on where you can mess it all up.
Jerry, last two for you before we let you go. Is there a Cowboys narrative, a storyline that you think we need a reality check on, something that the fans should know, something we've been worried or concerned about, or something you just want to set straight from all the offseason talk during all this build-up on the home of the Cowboys? Is there one narrative out there that you think needs to be adjusted a little bit?
Yeah, I think that we did. We came up short, and I thought that we're in as good a shape to have an extended run in the playoffs at the end of last year. And I don't want to dwell on it, but I do want to burn it in our minds. I do. And I want to make sure that we remember how bad it did feel. I'm talking about the team now and the people involved. How bad it felt to be out of games and didn't get closer or get in the Super Bowl. So I like that, continually reminding that we need to not only get in the playoffs, but we need to get way deep into the playoffs so we got a chance. I think this team is reflecting that. I think it is a narrative of the team. I think it reflected in our decision-making in the spring, who we kept, who we let go, and who we brought on. So that is the narrative. Get in a better spot to stay longer in the playoff.
And, Jerry, finally, Steven sounded a little emotional yesterday. Troyman commented on it. Would you like to say anything about the loss of one of your former coaches in Ernie Zampese?
Well, Ernie, I'll never forget. One of my most vivid pictures of it, we would put our best players up on the board when we met with the coaches after the season was over. And, of course, the ones you would expect would be up there. And he'd have Aikman, and he would have not just him, but all coaches would contribute to this list. But Ernie walked in on 2 or 3 years, and he would put Charles Haley about 8 inches above Aikman and right at the top of the list. And he would say, guys, I've been trying to block this guy since I was at San Diego, and he was over to San Francisco and in that area. But he said, this guy right here changes more offenses than anybody, more offensive coordinators, because he's that kind of player against offenses.
Wow.
But don't misunderstand the value of Charles Haley. He would, here's your offensive coordinator, put him about 6 inches above everybody.